research project in context, is especially befitting, we felt, that we had this chance to speak on the eve of Imam Bakar's Wiladat. Because as we've been hearing, Imam Bakr has this special place for the Shia in terms of his role in the spreading of knowledge. And as we have heard from Sheikh Yusuf's beautiful speech today, it was Bakr al-Ulum, the opener up of diverse approaches to knowledge. And of course, he has this special place for Shias as giving a vision of Islam through the lens of the Ahlul Bayt. And in particularly, we see that the ahadith which are relied upon by fuqaha when it comes to fiqh are largely through Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq, as Sheikh Yusuf mentioned. And even when the ahadith are through Imam Sadiq, the sixth Imam, they're often reported by rawis who were first initially trained by Imam Baqir. Many of those figures actually Sheikh Yusuf mentioned today. Jabir bin Yazid al-Ju'fi, Muhammad bin Muslim, Zurara bin A'yan, which wasn't mentioned. So these students of Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq have become a central source for the Shias, for the particular vision of fiqh, which is the source of the madhab of Ahlul Bayt. But the heritage of Imam Baqir and his contributions to knowledge are not restricted to giving this vision of Ahlul Bayt. Imam Baqir was seen as an authoritative, trustworthy source of knowledge beyond the Shia circle, beyond those elect students of the Shias. And we see some of the giants of the Sunni tradition referring to Imam Baqir as a source of authority and a trustworthy source of the Prophet's knowledge. So we have, for example, Malik in his Muwatta, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Shafi'i, the Tariq of Tabari, all these giants of the Sunni schools referring to Imam Baqir as an authoritative source of knowledge. Now this was only possible because Imam Baqir was willing to take part in the broader intellectual and academic circles of his day. And so on that note, it gives me great pleasure, to say that this community has facilitated us in an endeavor where we're trying to take part in the broader intellectual circles of this day. And I've had this opportunity of working with Dr. Morgan Clark at the University of Oxford, who's Associate Professor in Social Anthropology, to look at a project which wishes to highlight the lived experience of Muslims in the UK of what it actually means to practice Sharia. And to say a little bit more about this project, we're going to hand it over to Dr. Morgan. And maybe he's going to say, before talking about our specific project, something which I thought would be interesting to us is how Islamic studies is being treated at the universities here in the UK and in this broader intellectual environment within which we live. So please, maybe one more salawat, then I'll pass on to Dr. Morgan.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Reza, for that very kind introduction and for working with me on this project. But thank you to you all as well for welcoming me here today, yesterday, and last year as well. It's been a real privilege and a real pleasure to be able to attend the centre, but also a real honour to learn from you in the pursuit of this project. Thank you to CoEdge for facilitating the project. And thank you as well to all those people who've engaged with us so far. So, as Dr. Ali Reza said, we thought I would say a few words about the place of Islamic studies in the universities of the West today. Obviously, there's been Western interest in Islam for a long time. In previous centuries, when the universities, when knowledge was really a matter of religious knowledge, that was a matter of Christianity, debating with Islam, debating which way is the right path, and so on. But in the modern era, the model of knowledge is that of scientific knowledge, rigorous, and very importantly, impartial knowledge. And so when the wider world seeks that rigorous, authoritative knowledge, they usually, I hope, turn to the universities for that impartial and rigorous knowledge. Now, of course, there are always worries about just how impartial and rigorous this knowledge is. There's worries about to what extent is Western knowledge of Islam or of the Middle East, where I've worked before, in some sense politically motivated. I mean, I understand those worries. Sometimes I think they're exaggerated. But I do think that the process of challenging them and engaging with them is absolutely part of that project of ensuring that that knowledge is as rigorous as possible. And of course, now we have more and more Muslim scholars working in the universities, taking part in producing that knowledge, making sure that it is impartial and rigorous. And so that's also a very important and very welcome part of the process. Now, within the university, the study of Islam is distributed across different disciplines, different subjects. So the social sciences, like my own discipline of anthropology, study Islam as a social phenomenon in society. The social organizations that people are taking part in. Islamic theology and Islamic thought might be in the religious studies department. Sometimes, just as a matter of historical accident, it's in area studies, Oriental studies, studies of the Middle East. Islamic law might be studied in the law department. So all of these different disciplines have different perspectives and ways of thinking about Islam. And of course, in many ways, those different perspectives are a blessing, but it could also be problematic. An anthropologist or sociologist working on Islamic practice, but perhaps not knowing that much about the actual teachings of Islam. And so, interdisciplinary projects that bring those different sorts of knowledge together, as we're trying to do, are very important. We're both interested, for different reasons, in Shi'i studies, which are, relatively underrepresented in the academic study of Islam, but a growing subject, and we both think that's important. And the reason why it's important for me is that my previous research was in Lebanon, where, of course, it's very important to consider all the different communities and different perspectives, and in particular both the Sunni and Shi'i points of view. We're both particularly interested in Islamic law, as it's often called in the university, often spoken about in public discourse as Sharia, in public and academic writing. Something that I've come to grips with and started realizing through the research is that perhaps talking about fiqh might bear more on what we're interested in, which is the everyday practice of these rules and principles of being a good Muslim. And I think it's fair to say that the academic study of Sharia has focused rather on political issues, political leadership, religious authority, Sharia courts, which is what my previous book was on, as well as the textbooks of law, of fiqh. And that's all important, but it must also be important to understand the role that fiqh actually plays in the day-to-day lives of Muslims. And we think that that's really underrepresented, both in public understandings of Sharia, but also in what's written within the university, within academic studies. And so that's what this project is seeking to do, to improve that understanding. I understand that different Muslim communities may have different approaches to fiqh, but we think that the Shi'i community is actually a very good place to think about that because of the importance of the marja, the authoritative scholar of fiqh, such as Sayyid Sistani, which makes fiqh such an important part of community life. Now, it's early days in our research. We haven't got time to go into the detail in this presentation, but I think I would say that from our experience and the research so far, it's shown me the importance of that community, actually, when thinking about the practice of fiqh. And it's also shown me, I think, that it would be wrong to try and see the rules in isolation, that the practice of these rules is bound up in values, the values of Islam, shared values in many cases, the wider teachings of Islam as well. So those are some important points I've already taken away. And I should say finally that in today's era, it's become very important that publicly funded research has some kind of public benefit. If the taxpayer's funding the research, then it should have some benefit for the wider public. One of the things we hope to do through changing those academic perceptions of Sharia, that source of authoritative knowledge. We hope that that will have a bearing on public understandings of Sharia, improve them. But there may be other ways in which British society could make it easier for Muslims to follow the rules that are important to them, or at least show understanding of them. And it would be very interesting to hear your ideas about that as well.
Okay, so thank you. So just to, as you guys are aware, you've been invited. Hopefully, at least some of you will join us for a discussion. I think starting sometime after the main program, where we can talk a little bit further about our initial findings in this project and how it's going forward, inshallah, over the next few months. So while we've been here in Leicester, we've done something like 35 close interviews, some of them lasting up to an hour each. Participated in a number of the regular activities in the community, had a number of focus groups and group discussions. COEG is now facilitating us over the next 6 months to do a similar or have a similar participation in up to another 5 Jamaats, inshallah. And during the next few months, we're presenting some of our initial findings in various settings, community settings as well as academic settings, and we'll start writing up academic papers in the short term and towards hopefully larger projects in the longer term. So we're very, very grateful. The conversations we've had with people, most of you know me, and I've grown up in this community, and I think we know each other very well. But the time people have given us, and the personal stories people have shared with us, have really been touching. Okay, and sometimes almost always inspirational. So we hope that the time you've given us, will actually help us produce something worthwhile, which can be a benefit to the community, because it will feed back at COEG level, and hopefully can benefit the academic discourse, and inshallah, benefit the broader public understanding of Islam today as well. So we thank you very much and hope you can join us, and really grateful for the support of the Jamaat and everybody involved. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.